positive or hep C positive, it affects them when they go and apply for work. If they have to disclose that they're HIV positive. Whether it's in the oil field or in a doctor's office or in a restaurant. If you're hep C positive, my friends have said you almost never get hired. Although they won't say that's how come you're not going to be hired. I know that life for our gay community is really hard. That one of our friends, and I called Donovan a friend, and he was actually going to be here today, but with the web, he lives out in Vancouver, because that's where he went to be able to feel safe. Because he's actually from Red Deer. His family has been here a long time. I used to date his uncle back in the day. And he's been ostracized from his family. A, because of his lifestyle. B, because he's HIV positive. And he didn't become HIV positive because of his lifestyle or taking risks. He became HIV positive because a positive man beat him almost to death. And there was blood transfer. He wasn't injecting drugs with him, he wasn't having unprotected sex, but he was badly assaulted. And lots of our women become HIV positive because of unprotected sex with their partner or with others. Alberta is the only place in Canada where Aboriginal women are more likely to be HIV positive through heterosexual contact than they are through injection drug use. Saskatchewan, they have a huge drug issue as well, and it's largely through injection drug. Alberta has the star quality, though, of it being different. But our stigma and discrimination affects our people, as Terry said, going for treatment, going for medical advice, putting your kids in school. Do you tell your kid's teacher that my son is HIV positive, not because he's done anything wrong, but because I was positive at birth and the doctors did a forced delivery, or because I was positive and I breastfed him because up north, that's what they say it's better for you, better for your baby. I mean, yeah, it is usually, but nobody knows how much breast milk from a positive mom to a newborn baby can affect that baby. They just know it can happen. And all those pieces of stigma and discrimination are killing our community. They're killing our, and they make them unwelcome. And one of I've got a video for us to watch in a little while from, that was made by Cam. And the family of a positive young man was brave enough to talk about how they were treated, not because they were positive, but because their son or brother was, and how people wouldn't even shake their hand anymore, let alone come in their kitchen. And that makes our families feel unwelcome. And if this is your home community and people shun you, that destroys us inside our hearts. And that's why our HIV positive community says it's the stigma that's killing us now, and the discrimination, not the disease, because the disease is manageable. And I was really glad to hear you, Terry, say that you carry discrimination, and you just, we all, to some degree, it's a normal part. We do discriminate when we see someone, and lots of times it's not even conscious that we don't think about it. And around the guy speaking on the Bluetooth, right? Janet's brother, Donald, he always has, and I saw this thing in his ear, right? And he was going along talking to himself, and I asked Jan, is Donald deaf? Because I could just see this little thing in his ear. And she, no. Is he? And she went, no, he's talking on his phone. I'd never seen anybody with a little thing in their ear talking along. And the whole house, there was a whole bunch of us visiting, and here he is talking about something totally unrelated to the rest of us. And he was sitting right there, and I thought, there's something wrong with Donald.
I get discriminated against because of how many children I have.
Yes.
And so it's, and because that we are Métis, that on top of it, makes it even worse. And I am, when I moved, I'd asked Ray, how are the neighbors? Are they going to be discriminative because I'm Métis and I have 6 children? And that was a fear of mine, because everywhere I go, people, oh, there's another Native woman with a bunch of kids. But they don't know me. They don't know that I work really hard every day and that I take excellent care of my children. And yeah, but it's just ignorance and
and it makes it hard to get housing.
Yeah. I used to have to lie. When I first moved to Red Deer, I was staying with my niece, and I was phoning around, and this was back when there was the boom in Red Deer, and there was barely any housing. So I was phoning around, and everybody was saying no to me, and because I had 5 kids, and that's before I adopted my great nieces, and I had to lie. After 6 months of looking, I had to lie and say I only had 3, and I got a place right away. Yeah. That's pretty sad. I had to lie.
And it makes you feel gross inside.
Yeah.
And on that, because of stigma, it can produce, a large amount of loneliness, and you can isolate yourself, which can lead to, me going out and drinking and acting like a tart, and, because I'm drunk, that I'm going to use drugs, and stigma, I can place that stigma on my own self, with, well, because I'm Hep C, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to, anybody to know. And why am I going to go to the doctors? Because they won't know what to do with me or how to help me. And because, they're going to tell me, well, do you drink? Do you use drugs? Okay, well, you stop that first, and then we'll see what we can do for you, right? And a lot of response to stigma can tend to be a personal and emotional, I'm, like we say, it's, it goes back to our own selves and feeling the wounds and, sad and ashamed and embarrassed and overwhelmed and guilty, right? I feel guilty. How did I get, I don't want to be spreading my, or it's just, we can all put the stigma on our own selves. Oh, because I'm this way, I can't go into a sports bar, or, so, yeah, that's another thing I just want to say about the stigma, right?
Yeah, lots of times we internalize it. Or we look at someone and think, well, geez, you look like a healthy male, you look like a healthy woman, why aren't you doing these things, right? And lots of times it's because maybe on the outside they look really healthy, on the inside they have issues that may or may not be treatable. And we need to think about those things. One of my friends, her son used to wear his hair in braids, and he was very proud of the fact that he was an Aboriginal boy and had long hair. And when he went to school, they cut it off. Some of his friends. And that little boy had spent a long time growing his hair long. So when we think about it, we need to be careful about our mouth and the words that come out of it that we think may be funny, but that are hurtful to somebody else. And don't stop and think about the way we treat people. And we need to do that, not just mainstream people or Aboriginal people, that we need to stop and think about how we treat them.
Has anybody heard, like, I found this interesting, that CoverGirl has always had cover girls, or girls for CoverGirls. Now they have a male model that likes to wear makeup, and he's a makeup artist, and they have him as a cover girl.
I just seen that yesterday.
And I was like, wow, like a male cover girl. Like, and the stigma on there is that everybody assumes that he wants to become a girl. And he has made a statement, you know, saying, no, this is, you know, I don't want to be a girl. You know, I just like wearing makeup. And I'm good at it, you know? And so everyone just, I thought that was just, wow, CoverGirl has a male
Yeah.
CoverGirl. Male cover
He
girl.
looks pretty.
He's-
I seen it yesterday.
I-
I was like, oh my goodness.
I was telling that to
Fantastic.
a male friend of mine, and he was like, no, that's a girl. I said, no, that's a male model. Because everyone remembers Karma Chameleon Culture Club,
Boy
right?
George.
Boy
Yeah.
George.
My uncle was in love with him. Well, her.
So I guess before we end on stigma and discrimination, I'd like to check with people about their experiences with it. And Sarah, I'm not see, there you go.
So,
And this is putting everybody on the spot now. So you can always pass if you want to go, no, I don't want to talk about it.
it's fine. This would have happened about a little over a year ago. And I felt like a fairly well-adjusted individual when it came to discrimination, because being Aboriginal, we see it a lot. So, me and my family were living in a home, and we were there for just about a year. And our neighbor decided that he didn't like looking at us outside, and he stated that just like that. He said, "I don't like looking at you people on the lawn outside." It was a condominium, townhouse style, so it was a shared yard. So I was like, "Well, what do you mean? What are my kids doing, right?" Thinking my children were up to no good. So this went on like that for quite some time, and I guess the stigma behind that would be this individual's preconceived ideas on what Aboriginal people are like, who we are, and whatnot. So I started, and he started doing it all very formal, with letters, bylaw. infractions that were doing all sorts of stuff. So I was like, and it was starting to get pretty frustrating for me because I was writing him just as well written letters right back. Until he started barricading off our section of the lawn. And he went outside and put up chicken wire fence so that me and my children couldn't go sit. I used to go sit outside underneath that little tree and read my books. Love reading. So he put a chicken wire around that area so that we couldn't step foot on the lawn. So I guess, and then, yeah, so he wound up having us evicted, thrown out of that place because he didn't like Aboriginal sort of, right? And what I learned from that, though, you know, and it did give me some understanding into, I guess, some of those preconceived ideas on our people. And I was pretty enraged at the time with it over all that stuff. But after thinking about it, really thinking about it, I came to pity him, actually. I just started thinking, what a poor individual, they couldn't have come over and just talked. It's like, you know, this, and this, and we could have, you know, maybe come to some sort of terms. And I thought that at that point, we were doing everything perfect. That we should have been raising our kids, me and my wife were working, contributing, etc., not causing trouble. We didn't even party or drink. So we couldn't see where the problem was coming from until in one of his letters he said, and he called us Indians. He said, I don't like seeing these Indians on the lawn. They're breaking property, etc., etc. So I had to go around taking pictures to let the owners know that we weren't doing anything. But out of that, it helped me understand a little bit more on the other side of the fence, because I already know this side of the fence. So I started paying attention to what was happening and thinking to myself that even in today's day and age, these situations still happen quite often. And I was thinking also, you know, to other Aboriginal people that maybe wouldn't have fought as hard as I did against that and would have just kind of allowed it to happen because it's something we've kind of done all along. We're told something, you know, either there's a fight or we just kind of internalize it and walk away. Which is why I kind of got into this industry, so that I could help other Aboriginal people see their true potential, so that they could see that they don't need to feel that way or be made to feel that way.
What's that?
I think we already heard yours.
Yeah.
And Terry's.
Pass.
I thought I have a lot more time to think about this. Thank you all for passing. I have many personal stories, believe it or not, being a non-Indigenous looking person. You get to hear what white people really think, and it's not a pleasant experience, especially at work. And then also to hear your First Nation relatives call you the Munio in a very pejorative way. So, you know, I'm not complaining. I also have a lot of privilege associated with that. So But I do remember watching this documentary film about health. It was in the United States, and they were looking at what some of the impacts were of socioeconomic status and education, et cetera, on health, and they couldn't understand why, for a certain sector of the population, even when they had the same level of socioeconomic status and education and access to health services, their health was still so much less than the general population. And they finally figured out what the problem was. And it was a completely intangible thing called racism. That racism was a factor that sat on top of everything else and prevented people, no matter how much education they had, no matter how much money they were able to make, no matter how many social connections they were able to make, it was a factor that kept pulling them down and actually impacted their well-being, their health. They're a very tangible measure of how well they were doing. And I think that we forget that's such a huge factor, like that you can't even be safe in your own home with your kids doing really ordinary things without having some sort of force acting against your well-being. And we all have to live with that, unfortunately. And it actually impacts everyone negatively, not just the people who experience it more directly. It takes away from our common humanity, I think, from our ability to experience life and the world and the richness of being human, because we limit each other that way. And so I've worked really hard most of my life to not be that way, to try to experience the world as openly as I can. And that kind of brings me to another point, that we can't see things that we don't understand, and we will impose our own understanding onto the things that we see. So when a very prejudiced person looks at your family on the lawn, he will see things that are not there. He will, because of his
Absolutely.
preconceived notions of who you are.
He wrote it all down.
Exactly, right? And that is the case. Like, you're dealing with people who think that they see things that are not there. And how do you fight against that? You have to capture people's minds and their hearts and break open those very deeply ingrained belief systems that keep them stuck in this pattern of belief. And that's hard work, and that's a lifetime of work. That's a legacy that you need to pass on, not you, that I need to pass on to my children. That it's not an easy place to live, to understand that you're fighting against these kinds of notions. But it's the only place I think that's worth living in. So that's what I try to give to my children. So I pulled her out of school and thought it was totally okay for her to come and experience something like this, because school is one of those places where you learn those preconceived notions, I think, as much as any place. And it's a place like this where you get to break out of those. So that's
On that note, I liked how you said that you would like to impart that to your children. Right there is a particular story when I was in grade 4. One of these dear children, one of my classmates, had decided he was going to call me a wagon burner. And I went home to my mom and I said, "Mom, what is a wagon burner?" Right away, her expression changed and said, "Where did you learn, or where did you get that word?" And I said, "Well, one of my classmates called me that." She grabbed my hand, literally, "Where does he live right now?" and took me over there. And she basically knocked on the door and asked the lady at the door, "Are you such and such's mother?" She said, "Yes." Bang, my mother slapped her and said, "Where did your son learn that word, wagon burner?" She said, "If your son ever calls my son a wagon burner again, I will come back here and I will slap you and your husband," right? Yeah. So that is a parental discrimination taught to that child, right? And so, thank you, Mama, for defending my honor. Such a fashionable way, but yeah, parents do teach their kids discrimination like that. Yeah. So.
Our neighbor.
like our neighbor.
Like I remember one of our neighbors has this little boy that used to come over to our house all the time, and I remember he was talking to us about things his mom was saying, And she said he said to us that she doesn't like us because we were Native. And she's like, oh, she thought you guys were Native. And I looked at him and I'm like, we are. So and I'm like, wait, your mom said this. Can you? He's like, oh, I thought she did. Maybe she didn't mean it or anything. And he went to talk to her about it. And when she saw me standing there, she completely changed the story. So the thing about people who think this way is they have these feelings, but because they know that they're wrong, they're cowards. They're not afraid. They're not strong enough to say it to people. They know that it's wrong. They know it's not okay. But they do it anyway.
That's very good.
I have never experienced life without stigma and discrimination. I have not always addressed it in the most diplomatic or conciliatory methods. Because there are times when I have offered to terminate someone so that they didn't have to look at life that way, and that would remove the problem out of my life. I guess it might have given me a couple of other problems had I done that, but it hurts. Our families, it hurts. And it hurts all our generations. My mom, we lived in Caroline, and she was called a buck lover because my dad was very much an Aboriginal man. And the person that called her that only called her that in my hearing once. It hurts.
Oh, let's see. Going back to your courage statement there, I have been knee deep in redneck / oil field society for 20 years now. And as I was building my career, there are points in time where I could have stood up for people's obvious discrimination against my family. I married into Aboriginal society. I mean, very white, but it was very hard at first to stand up to people that are in control of you and your destiny. But the times that I have done it, I definitely felt better about myself, right? And I have done it more and more since the first few years of marrying into the family that I have right now. And as I get older, I have built more courage towards doing that, because like what if I'm gone tomorrow? Would I be able to look back on my life and be proud of myself to do that or not? Doing it has cost me probably advancements in my career. Doing this, working with an Aboriginal society community has cost me some friends. But were they really my friends if they were bigots and assholes, right? I found, my ideals have become a lot more liberal in my early years, as my teenage years and my early 20s. It is tough to see it from other side too. When you're so indentured into the culture that I've grown up with, and I'm trying to work with. But you do find out right away who and how progressive the society has gotten, considering what it used to be like 20 years ago. I mean, gay men and women couldn't marry just a few years ago. Nobody was talking about the murder and the disappearance of Aboriginal women until recently. Not way out in the open and in front of governments and whatnot. Aboriginal government has never been so strong as it is now. We do have a long way to go, and if I can do something within, even from today forward, is to try to help change people's minds on my side of the fence, which normally, like I said, I am knee deep in the redneck. I hate using that frame, but it is true. I am knee deep in a redneck culture, and certain things that I've done over the years, including vote NDP, were things that I never thought I'd do in my lifetime, let alone because I'm a fiscally conservative person, but I believed the conservative government in this province has gone way off track, and they ended up being a bunch of crooks. So I wanted a shock in the system, and just for me to admit that in my work environment was tough, and I lost some people on my side there. It's very political where I am in my position at work, and hopefully people will start to change their minds and see me as a progressive person, and it'll help me feel good about myself later on in life. And I do look back and go, did you fight the good fight? Yes, I did. And this is one of them. This is something I really am passionate about. This organization, Shining Mountains, has given me a lot emotionally, and it's contributed to my self-worth, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for everybody that's sharing. I respect everybody that wants to keep it inside, and a lot of these things I like to keep inside too. There are points in time, like in my early years